In a small rural town in Tuscany, a young boy discovers the world. Almost from the beginning, the mysteries of nature fascinating.
He grew up in the countryside outside of Florence, and he seems to have been able to find all kinds of animals and plants and insects.
But young Leonardo has no real place in the world, no future. He is the bastard child of a respected notary and a poor farmer's daughter. He lives in his father's house, while his mother is left to marry a man of her own class. Destined for life as a tradesman, he cannot even take his father's name. He is known as Leonardo from Vinci. His family will spend no money on his formal education.
You can sort of imagine what it must be like to have been considered illegitimate in an age when being illegitimate really meant something. There were, professions that were closed to you. You were constrained greatly by that, by something completely beyond your control.
Faced with his illegitimacy, young Leonardo begins to develop a code to push beyond all expectations, past all obstacles. It will eventually propel him into the corridors of power and on to greatness. In his teens, Leonardo moves with his father to Florence, a city driven by perilous politics. In this thriving place of commerce and beauty, one family stands at the center. A family whose importance to Leonardo will grow as he matures. The Medici. For Leonardo, it is difficult to gain entry to even a lower non-professional guild. His one hope rests in his talent and the help of his father's well-placed friend.
Tu devi essere Leonardo. Ti stavo aspettando. Tuo padre pensa che hai del talento.
In 1468, when Leonardo is 16, his father sends him to Andrea de Verrocchio, a highly regarded Florentine artist.
This is how you do things in Florence. You get referrals from your relations, your neighbors, your extended network of clients and friends. This kind of personal referral is how you, with a certain way, break the practice of training your own son in your own line of work.
Verrocchio agrees to take Leonardo as an apprentice, to give him the experience he needs to one day gain admittance to a guild. Here, Leonardo first comes to understand the connection between art and power. The Medici, the ruling family of Florence, often commissioned paintings from Verrocchio. Leonardo da Vinci, at age 24, transforms himself from the bastard son of a notary to a legitimate artist recognized by the Medicis, the most powerful family in Florence.
Florentines are very competitive. It's very, very frustrating to be an artist in Florence, but also competition makes things better, makes you do a better job as an artist.
In Verrocchio's studio, his persistent experimentation with paint and technique sets him apart. This commitment becomes a vital part of his code, a way to push ahead of his competitors who are better educated. He, like everyone else, is caught up in the tension and anxiety of impending war. He begins designing ladders and other devices for defending and scaling walls.
These ladders are designed to carry 2 men. They are also useful for a tower, where you might fear that a rope ladder could be detached by the enemy.
It's all engineering, 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 because that's sort of the reality of Italy at the time that Leonardo's alive. You have all these different warring city-states, and warfare is a constant fact of life.
Da Vinci labors on and waits, putting his active mind to work on defensive fortification and other weapons of war. As peace at last comes to Florence, Leonardo receives a commission to paint the Adoration of the Magi, an altarpiece for the monastery at San Donato a Scopito. It is his first important work.
We have the Adoration of the Magi treated like nobody has really conceived this event before. Among the turmoil of figures that are surrounding the kind of serene Virgin and Child, this frenzy of devotional attention, there are rearing horses. It's a turmoil of men and horses.
He forms the composition almost in a square, with a triangle made up of the Virgin and kneeling kings.
But here, Leonardo is using the body of the horse to invest his composition with dynamic motion and energy, the sense of frenzy, the sense that this is almost like an apocalyptic event in the incarnation.
Tantalizingly, some scholars think the standing figure of the young man on the bottom right may be a self-portrait of the young Leonardo. The work is considered an overture, a first statement of Leonardo's great work to come. Still eager to establish a great legacy for this Forza name, gives Da Vinci a new commission, a religious mural for the court church Santa Maria della Grazie, to be decorated with his family coat of arms. It will become one of the world's great masterpieces. But to the priest's consternation, years pass with no sign of completion.
Maestro Leonardo, quando pensate sarà finito?
Ho solo bisogno di mettere una faccia a Giuda. No, fermo lì. La vostra sembianza sarà perfetta.
Leonardo spends more than 3 difficult years on the mural, a complex and beautiful rendering of Christ's final meal with the apostles. It is called The Last Supper. Revolutionary for its time, Leonardo's painting captures the dramatic moment when Jesus tells his apostles, "One of you will betray me." In his writings, Leonardo describes how the gestures and faces of the apostles convey such intense distress.
One twists the fingers of his hands together and turns grim-faced to his master. Another, with hands outspread, showing the palms, shrugs his shoulders.
Da Vinci's attention to human response reveals his obsession with science.
He mastered anatomy, he was a master of geometry, he mastered perspective, and by utilizing all these sciences, Leonardo could create an art that was scientific in a way. Painting was a source of knowledge, just as geometry was a source of knowledge.
But in The Last Supper, Leonardo pushes his scientific approach too far as he experiments with his paints, incorporating oil, which proves incompatible with the plastic base.
So he decides he's going to try a new technique at drawing the fresco, and it doesn't work. In fact, it destroys much of what he has labored to do.
Within decades, dampness in the wall begins to disintegrate the oil-based paint. But Leonardo will not be there to see it happen. The one work for which he will always be remembered.
No, non ridete. Sorridete. È divertente, ma non isterico. Pensate cose dolci. Pensate al vostro amante. Giusto.
It is called the Mona Lisa. No one knows who she is, or if she even existed at all. As he paints, Da Vinci keeps her amused with music and entertainment.
Leonardo says in his writings that faces are most beautiful at dusk. He captures this effect by using transparent films of paint, a technique which is later called sfumato, which means kind of literally smoking, kind of a smoky effect.
You can see it in these almost invisible transitions from light to shade, which are so enigmatic and so incredible that anybody could paint that with brushes. It's really a great display of virtuosity. People often talk about the Mona Lisa smile as being mysterious. If it is mysterious, it's because Leonardo da Vinci has shaded the corners of her mouth and eyes, which are some of the most expressive features of the human face.
It's to suggest that the Mona Lisa is a painting of a mystery, that there's something very, very secret going on with the Mona Lisa. And this is, we get the elaboration of this myth of secrecy about the Mona Lisa's smile. Or who is the Mona Lisa? You know, is she Leonardo's lover? Is she Leonardo himself?